Welcome to Interstate and Main Street, the podcast where we connect our expertise with the communities we serve. I'm Lonni.
And I'm Travis.
And today we're doing something special. This year, we're celebrating Interstate Engineering's 50th anniversary. We'll revisit where we started, the moments that shaped us, and what's ahead for the next generation of communities. So let's get into it. So Travis, you and I have been here a long time, and with the company being 50 years old, let's talk just a little bit about the origins and early growth, and between the two of us, kind of do a walk down memory lane. What did the company look like at the beginning to you and I, at least through the eyes of the founding five? I think you probably have more experience than I do with that. So you want to do some reflection?
Yeah, if we go way back to 1976, obviously we weren't a part of it at that time. But the early days it's kind of neat, right? The five founding fathers started at a small office building above what they called the Fair Store in downtown Jamestown. Pretty tight quarters, and eventually they moved into, I believe it was the late 70s, where they got their actually first office and started to move into something. So you look at from those very humble beginnings of five people to where it is today, it's pretty neat to see the growth that's happened in the 50 years.
For sure. I worked with one of the five on the board of directors, Randy Pope. And so when we talk about the founding values and mission, that still holds true today. And of course, it took a lot of hard work, strong work ethic being one of our values, to really start the company from the ground up and putting up personal money, in fact, for that. And, the loyalty value still rings true today. We've got dozens and dozens of what we call legacy clients that really start back from that foundation. So that's one thing that's really special about Interstate over these last 50 years, is that loyalty, which we appreciate. And then I think both of us, we talk in our current leadership meetings a lot about the integrity value and doing the right thing always. So that rings true today as well. And of course, the last one, the founding one, was helping others. And that's really the core of who we are. We're using our gifts and our talents to help the communities where we work and live and play and dearly appreciate.
I agree. You look at those founding values and mission, and like you said, they started with hard work. But the other thing that I think all five, it's neat to see the humble beginnings. They had five people with five directions. They're like, how are we going to make this go? And they had a plan. One was BD, one was surveying, one was engineering, but they all worked together and they went in those different directions. You look at how that evolved. And I think the other thing that all of them realized, be involved in your community. That's one reason why, as you look at how the company evolved, and we've got 19 different offices, their core was to make sure that get involved in your community. As we say now, be interactive. But they believe that from a very, very humble beginning, that get involved in different clubs and rotaries and different things, so that you actually get to meet the people, you get involved in the community, you understand what the community makes it go, so that we can actually be a part of that success and how we can design engineered solutions to make that happen.
Yeah. I love that. It's still true today. Just for the roster, the founding five, I mentioned Randy Pope, of course, Clyde Mallory, Kenny Loveland, Ross Milne, and then Leroy Couts. And Leroy's still in the Jamestown area and pops in once in a while and sees you over there, which is really, really cool. And we celebrated his 50th anniversary a few months ago, which was exciting, in March. And I just think it's so neat. And so some of those founder beliefs trickled through. Do you remember when we were up for board of directors seat in the questionnaire that they gave us at that time? One of the questions, which gets back to the founders, right? Because they had to put their own personal money up to start this business. And one of the questions that if we wanted to be on the board of directors, it caused you to reflect. It was something like, are you willing to put up a personal loan to back any financial something? Do you remember that?
I do. And I think a lot of it was actually even some of the payroll. As we all know, the greatest asset we have is our employees. and payroll is one of the greatest liabilities. And there was a spot in there that, are you willing to actually put a personal financial security to ensure that we can actually cover those costs?
Yeah.
Reminds me of another story that there's always different things that early days, another one of the original people, not original, but one of the early founders that came along was Rick Mock. And there was a Saturday survey crew. And if I got this right, it was a Saturday survey crew of Rick Mock, Randy Pope, and Leroy Couts. And part of the reason that those three were working on a Saturday is because they were salaried. They didn't have to pay anybody actually extra time or overtime on a Saturday. And they were that conscious about how we're going to make this company go that they were watching everything, even on the weekends, and how they'd actually move this thing forward.
Wow. Yeah. So that covers some of the early knowledge that you and I have. So as we grow through the last 50 years, it's had its ups and downs, as we know. One that stands out for me, because I live in Williston, North Dakota, is the Bakken boom. And depending on your source, that could be from 2006 or 7 to 2015-ish. And that was a wild ride for everybody involved, including Interstate. And there just wasn't enough people. And the phone was ringing off of the hook. And so I was positioned up there. And at the time I was in leadership. So it did allow access to resources, which was a blessing and a little bit of a curse, because there was a lesson there, a couple lessons that I learned through that. One, that phone was ringing off the hook, but I stayed true to our mission and our values, which was, we've had legacy clients, our local governments, who we've served for years, and they've trusted us. And through that, they were always primary when that phone was ringing. And we were serving the other, I'll call it the Bakken rush, if you will, as we had time. So that I think we did right. But as the lessons learned category, the other offices, like in Minnesota, for example, that opportunity they helped us with, which was a blessing, but it did also stunt our growth in Minnesota, because the focus was to the Northwest and, the Bakken area. And so looking back, if we were to do it again, having clearer boundaries so that we could continue growth in the state that wasn't necessarily booming too.
Agreed. I think the other thing that I remember from the boom as well is we have always been a company from the very beginning that our employees, as we said earlier, are our greatest asset, and we hold on to that and we hold that dear. We could have made a conscious effort that during the boom, we're going to go out and hire anybody and everybody. And if the boom goes away, we'll just let people go. That's not the Interstate, how that we've been brought up to believe in how we run it today. If we're going to make a commitment to an employee and their families, we're going to honor that commitment. So we had a controlled growth through there to make sure we took care of our employees.
100%. So a turning point as we look back more towards present day, the biggest one that stands out for me, for us, was March of 2025, when we made the official decision to shift our leadership from a board of directors style to what we are right now, which is an executive style of leadership. In that turning point is super interesting, the why behind that. And before I jump into my perspective, do you have any initial comments on that turning point?
No, as I look at it, there was a few turning points even before there that the board at that time decided that there was the first time we're going to actually go, instead of just an office profit region or an office profit center, that we moved into some region. We started to come up with regional vice presidents. We coming up with market sector leaders. The one that we just did more in 2025 was a big shift. Like, now here's 50 years. How are we going to control the next 50 years? How are we setting ourselves up for success? How are we going to grow? So as you look at the foundation that's laid there for the next 50 years, I think we've got that in place, and we're starting to evolve that further to make sure that we're truly successful in our next 50.
You bet. So just a little bit more on the why behind the what. I think all five of us on the board at the time, with Damon DeVillers, Mike Bassingwaite, Wade Sanger, of course, and you and I, Travis, we had many discussions about this turning point and this shift. But before we did this, the decision-making process was interesting. And it was the way we'd always done business, which was all operational decisions go through that. What was a 5-person board, and then Damon stepped off the board, and then it became 4. But all those operational decisions flowed that way. And for the longest time, if you were a regional vice president, you were also on the board. And so we were front of the line. So your head was always in the game in operations. But at one point in time, just reflecting on my career, I was wearing 5 or 6 hats. And I can remember way back in the day when Brian Milne was on the board, and we would jump in the car and head to Jamestown. That was a 5 or 6 hour drive, because back then, sure, we had some technology, but most of our board meetings were in person. And so I think about that investment of time in the car to get to and from, and how that's changed, where most of our meetings today are virtual through Teams and effective, though we do try to make our way across the footprint of the firm and have that connection time. It's so important. But getting back to the 5 hats, that's, at least for me, what drove me through the process of taking that step, which was, being on the board. And so you're not just attending monthly meetings, you're preparing for those meetings to cause action to happen. And so there's a lot of prep time. At the time, I was a regional vice president of Montana and 3 counties in Northwest North Dakota. I was a client manager and attending monthly city commission meetings, and through that Bakken boom, sometimes 2 times a month. So making sure those clients felt like they were number one through that. I was a project manager and engineer of record. And I know all this rings true for you too, Travis. You lived this too. And I was an office manager in Williston. I was doing design, and you just did it because that was the tone set at the top. And, but I started to think about, we're really running a race here, and I'm on a path to burnout, and there's got to be a better way. And so for me personally, I was challenging that narrative a little bit and saw that it was stunting some growth because there's only so many hours in a day. What's your perspective? I know you lived that just like I did.
Yeah, I think the same thing. As you look at it, wearing so many hats, there's only so much you can do. And as we've evolved and we talk a little bit more about that work-life balance, it got to be a lot. When you look at an RVP, an office manager, a client manager, and multiple clients, then keeping the project managers going, looking at trying to still be involved in construction, it got to be a lot. And as you look at that, trying to get some of that off of your plate to a few things: allow other people to grow, allow them some ownership so they can grow in their career path. It allows you to focus a little bit more so that you can actually take care of, at the end of it, we're still very much a client-focused firm. And that's what kind of rings true, that as much as we do the work-life balance, we still have a very good work ethic from the standpoint that we live in the communities where we live. We're invested in those communities. Their emergencies are our emergencies. Their projects are our projects. And as we continue to see that and get involved, that's where I think a lot of the success from is we've never forgotten that client-first mentality, client-focused mentality.
I love that mentality. It just feels right, the connection.
Yep.
So going through some of those lessons, that's one of those things that we're consistent today, operating as a client-facing, regional-based firm across our 5-state footprint.
Yeah, I think looking at like what they do differently, and when I look at what would have our original founders done differently, to one that rings true is, again, we kind of go back, we look at the 5 original founders, and they just knew they had to work hard. They knew that, as Leroy has told us before, as the old adage goes, but from his mouth, is failure was not an option. They had to do it. It had to go forward and make this thing work. So as you look at as hard as they worked and everything they did, one item that rings true is when Randy Pope left the board of directors, he wrote a letter to all the employees. And the one that really stood out to me was, his quote was, "Work to live, don't live to work." And he actually admitted, I did not do this very well. So you look at where he was at to realizing when he was getting to the end of his career, there is more to life than what we do. We still keep focused, as I said. Their emergencies, our client emergencies are our emergencies, but we all have families and we need to make sure that we are there for them as well.
Yeah. Do you think with our kind of pivoting to where we're at today and our adjusted values, do you think that Randy and the others would be proud of that, what we've done? And so to recap with our adjusted values, of course, we've got the helping others, we've got the integrity and the loyalty, but we're adding to that reliability in place of that, because it encompasses, not in place of, it encompasses that strong work ethic that the company was founded on. It's our clients depend on us and we're going to figure it out and we're going to show up every time. It might look a little bit differently with more staff doing what used to be done with one staff, for example, for that bandwidth, but the reliability is still there. And then the fifth one, balanced living. You think they'd be proud of us?
I know they would. I just, even knowing before Randy even passed away, some of the conversations we had, he was very proud of the direction where this company was going. Still talking to Leroy today. He's still very proud of the direction that the company is being shaped. So I know they'd be very proud of the direction this company continues to move forward with.
Yeah.
As we look at, as you evolve forward and even those lessons learned, what stayed consistent, as we look at some of the things that changed and how we got to where we are, and we talk about that work-life balance, but some of those things that stayed consistent is still, it's an honest day's work for an honest day's pay, that we've kept that client focus, that we, as we said, their emergencies are emergencies. We do a better job of a work-life balance that we can actually take care of our families as well. But I believe as we talk to our employees, all of our families know that something happens on a Saturday night with one of those communities that we serve, whether it's a natural disaster or something that happens, they know that's where we need to be. And that's where our clients actually, I think, really, when you start to build that relationship and they know that they can count on us and trust us when we're a phone call away, and it doesn't matter what time of day that is, that if they need us, we're there. That really, really helps keep that client focused attitude.
100%. Yeah. Yep. A lot of emotion. So looking forward of what's the next 50 years look like? What are we excited about? What's the vision and impact? I mean, this is fresh. We just came off of strategic planning last month for our next 5 years. To be fair, it's 50 years it's hard to predict, but if we take them in 5-year increments, the future is very, very bright. What are you excited about?
The main thing I'm excited about is, as we talk about our employees, we look at what our employee retention within the company is, and we are very strong with our employee retention, which is great from the standpoint we've got a lot of leadership at a senior level, but we've got so much young and upcoming talent that can actually learn from those others. So my biggest excitement over the next 5, 10 to 50 years is what the future growth and how these young people that are working so hard today are going to evolve into the future leaders and the direction they're going to take this company.
For sure. One of the things that's most important to us is leaning into innovation and working smarter and not harder. So we talked a fair amount in strategic planning about that and technology and how things have changed over the years. Just real quick, it's kind of funny on the survey side, just a reflecting point. Leroy's talked to us about the surveyor's chain, the Gunter's chain that was 66 feet in measurement, 100 links, metal. I've honestly never touched one. I'm going to full disclosure, but of course, some of the other tools over time, or back then, the theodolite and the transits, which was the telescope mounted on a tripod to measure horizontal and vertical angles. And then for elevation, you've got, I thought it was just a slang word, dumpy level, but I looked it up. Like it's a thing. Like, oh, okay. I thought I learned something that was neat. And then the leveling rods, they were wooden rods that an assistant would hold. Now they're fiberglass, and that would help us measure elevations. But now look at today, what we have. And it just amazes me with our survey group and how innovative they have been and just leaned into technology and the investments we've made. Of course, I skipped over the era of like total stations. Now they're robotic total stations, GPS. Now we've got 3D laser scanning capabilities. Of course, we've got our drones. We just invested in Vivian is her name, a drone that's NDAA compliant to satisfy federal requirements. But Vivian can be LiDAR or just, I'll call it traditional photogrammetric. But it just amazes me how technology has changed and is a force multiplier for us. Just in survey alone, not to mention all the other software upgrades we've seen.
Agreed. It seems like survey is the one that really stands out when you look at the very early days of surveying and 3-man survey crews on everything that went everywhere. And now, like you said, it evolved into the robotic total station, into GPS, and now into drone data. It reminds you of some of the stories way back when, of before our day, even with the original founders, when they started talking about their dilemmas were like, are we really going to get a fax machine? Isn't everybody going to want a fax machine? Where now you look at how it's evolved from those fax machines into the first simple computers where everybody's using everything's by hand and slide rules and all of that, where now it's just moving into the AI, coming up with that, how this whole thing has evolved. It makes you curious to see that we're getting into AI now, and what is 50 years from now going to really look like?
What was the joke that Randy was concerned now everybody's going to fax jokes back and forth to each other and we need to get to work or something like that?
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
Yep. As you look back, I know that was one of the concerns. If somebody got a fax machine, every office is going to want a fax machine. And what are we going to use this for? So a lot of the growing pains that have evolved to where we're at today.
So where you shine, your superpower is city engineering work. That when we serve our communities, I think about your career, Travis, and I admire what you've done in the southeast region of North Dakota. I love how you show up every day and serving communities, and now you're passing on your knowledge and your legacy to the next generation of leaders. What do you love about what you do in the practice and now mentoring others?
Sometimes I joke that maybe I'm not always a people person, but I think at the core of it, I truly am. I love the people. Coming to work on a Monday morning is still fun for me. I love seeing the people. I love working with the people I work with. I actually enjoy going to council meetings. I enjoy when they are looking like, hey, we have a project. How are we going to get this project done? Putting together solutions. All of those parts I really enjoy. And as we all know, the longer you're in the career, like I have some very good friends that are also clients, and it's hard not to be when you are invested in those communities and you spend your summers there working on projects. They're great people. Next thing you know, they're like, hey, you're still here tonight. Why don't you come over for supper? And you start to develop those relationships. That's what I really enjoy. As I look at part of this, of even the future in the engineering, I think a part of that in the engineering and just community development, we talk about that. So many communities know what they need to do. They just don't know how to get there, especially on the funding component. So as I see we go forward, I think there's main things is going to be the continuation of the planning, because they need to actually have a good plan about how they're going to strategically move forward with this. And then also the funding, because they know what they want to do, but how are we going to be able to pay for this? We can only put so much back on the taxpayers. So I think as we continue to evolve those groups, especially the planning and the funding in this scenario, is going to be key, because as we evolve that funding group to put those solutions together to minimize the impact of the taxpayer is going to be huge.
Yeah, for sure. And the planning that we offer works wonderful in our footprint because of all of those local governments that we serve. And so planning as we know it today started for us about 9 years ago. We added our first certified planner, Brent Moore. And before that, we've had planning in our marketing materials, because we did do planning before we had a certified planner on board, but it was more geared towards asset management and helping our communities use their budgets as wisely as possible with that planning. But now that we have multiple certified planners on our team now, of course, we're going much deeper than that, which I appreciate, including, land use planning and zoning ordinances and comprehensive plans that brings a community together to have a voice and talk about what the next 50 years looks like for their community, because those decisions being made today have long-term consequences or benefits. And so it needs to be done in an informed way. And just love that we continue to offer the planning expertise to our communities for that, to set them up for success.
Yeah, as I look back, I'm sure if I go in the archives in Jamestown somewhere, we still have an old sign that shows interstate engineering from probably the 80s. That was just engineering, surveying, and planning. The planning that was done in the 80s is completely different and a huge evolution to where our planning team has taken us today. We did it, but now these guys bring a whole new level of expertise to do it so well. And that reminds me of just our landscape architecture group. As we continue to grow, there are certain projects that we did some aspects that is landscape architecture, and we did them pretty well, but the landscape architecture team has just brought a whole new evolution to where we're going to take that and to make sure that our clients get what they really need and what they're looking for.
You bet. So your role, I'm jealous of you. Your role is Chief Growth Officer. And so you get to work shoulder to shoulder with this newer offering in our company. And it's a special offering that helps connect the natural environment, which we all love and we want to preserve and be good stewards with I don't know if you want to call it a concrete jungle, but the built environment. And our team of landscape architects, they get to do that. They get to create that bridge and create the feeling we have every day as we live in our communities. And so that's neat that you get to work alongside them to showcase that.
Another one that I just really enjoy, right? And engineers by nature are probably going to be roads are north, south, east, west. We're going to keep it actually simple in design and keep it economic. But one of these things that they bring is like there's so much more to what the community wants in aesthetics and how they're going to serve people and the paths that go with it, things that are just outside of maybe some of the normal thinking. So they just bring a different wealth of knowledge that's going to help serve our clients that much better.
You bet. So 50 years is a long time. And what we did about a year ago in restructuring is setting us up for the next 50. And like I said, the future is really bright, and it's just the beginning of what's possible. I'm just thrilled for this next era that we're entering into. As you look back, Travis, and now looking forward to, we've got some new people on our team. I just met a couple interns, one intern and one full-time employee today, and the energy that they bring, and they don't know what we're talking about today. And so as you look back, what's one thing that you wish people knew about interstate engineering, including those folks that I just talked about?
There's probably actually even more than one thing as I look back maybe at the early days of Interstate and some things that maybe people didn't know and maybe even fully appreciate, right? 50 years ago is a long time. That's a great run. But it's interesting to me as you look back when those 5 people started out this company, the 5 founding fathers, there's a few things that we had mentioned, but one is they didn't know how it was going to go. A lot of the 5 people, when they were at a company before that, they just weren't sure they really liked the direction it was going. That company was very tight-knit. They didn't know how the financials worked. They really came into this. We didn't know how this is going to work. But as Leroy had mentioned, failure was not an option. So they got into it. They went their directions. They supported each other, and they went all in to make sure that it was going to be a success. And the other thing that I think people kind of know, but not everybody knows, that they always envisioned it was bigger than Jamestown, North Dakota. Even though that's our corporate office, that's how the name Interstate Engineering came around, is they knew it was bigger than Jamestown. In fact, they knew it was going to be bigger than North Dakota. They had visions back in 1976 to be a multi-state firm.
Visionary.
Yep.
So looking back as we reflect about, we've got a lot of wonderful people working on our team, and like we say, everybody's a leader, leading yourself well and leading up, left, right, and down. As you and I look back, and we're still learning too. We're lifelong learners. We think about what challenge maybe taught us the most about leadership.
For me, the part that taught me the most about leadership is just dealing with people. And we talk about the HR, and you look at the early days, we didn't have a big HR department, but now we do. And it's just a matter of how you interact with those employees. And everybody's here for the same common goal. We all want to do well for the company. We want to serve our clients well, but there's different ways of getting there. And we need to understand our employees and what drives them to get them to succeed and put them in the position to succeed. That's probably the biggest thing in leadership that I see is meet them where they're at. We can't just have a one size fits all. We have to actually allow them to be able to grow, for them to grow within their comfort level so that they can be the best version of themselves for both the company, our clients, actually three things, and themselves.
That's great. Yeah, I think maybe a little bit of advice and a lesson that I learned as I'm growing in my journey as a leader is if you're feeling uncomfortable or uneasy about something you have to do tomorrow, you might have to have a toe-to-toe conversation with a contractor, for example, and that anxiety might be building of that conflict. That's a good thing. That uneasy feeling means you're being stretched. It means you're human, you're normal, and keep walking towards it is the best advice. Don't shy. Try not to shy away. We're all human. But if you keep walking towards it, it strengthens your armor. And then the number 2 time and the 10th time, it gets just a little bit easier. Culture-wise, you've been with Interstate not quite 30.
Right.
29?
29.
Man, I was rounding up. And I'm on my 21st. In the industry, about 27. You'll always be older than me. You know that.
You're catching up percentage-wise.
Culture. How has it evolved in the time we've been here?
That I see the culture has changed is whether it's people want to consider it's the baby boomer generation or just the founding fathers' work ethic, but it was just that we had to work hard, and it was continually work. It was long hours. It was weekends. It was time away from family. And I believe that the culture has changed to make sure that we're supporting a better work-life balance. And as we talked, we still know we are very client focused, and their emergencies are our emergencies, all of those things. But we also have families, and we need to make sure those families are taken care of, and that the moms and dads and siblings, all those people are there when those families need them. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've seen. And I've also seen as we've actually allowed people more flexibility in doing that, those employees have appreciated it to a point that it comes back and they're still finding if they have to come in on nights and weekends to make up for the time they had to leave for a kid's soccer game on Tuesday at 2:00, they're making up for that. They appreciate it so much that they realize this is the place they want to be. They'll find a way to make sure their work gets done. I think that's one of the biggest culture pieces that I've seen has changed, and I think it's worked very well.
I agree. Today we pride ourselves in empowering our trusted professionals on our team, and what needs to be done to keep our promises to each other and to our clients. And people thrive when they're empowered and they show up in a big way.
And I think we've even seen that with our clients. Our clients appreciate that too. We've probably all been at meetings, and there's probably sometimes they've asked, why are you here? Doesn't your kid have a game tonight? Like, we can actually figure this out another way. They appreciate that, but they also appreciate, like I said, when they actually have an emergency, when Mother Nature hits and they need help, they know that we're a phone call away and we're going to respond and we're going to drop what we're doing to go out and help them.
For sure. Another culture piece that stands out to me, we are 100% employee owned, right? And we've had that status for over 25 years. And I've been here for almost 21 years of that ride. And one thing that's changed as we've evolved is our transparency with information. Again, it's this trust element where a third of our firm is reading this book sitting here. It's The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. And we're passionate about trust because the higher the trust is, the quicker things get done and the less they cost to get done. And so we're really embracing that, not only internally, but externally with our clients too. But I think about that transparency element as it relates to our internal workings. And we're really trying to be forthcoming with information. We all own and are proud to own this company. And so there's challenges we need to overcome. Let's be transparent about those and work together to do that and celebrate the good years too. That's been fun to watch how engaged our team is in listening to those transparent all hands meetings, for example, and the feedback.
Yes, I think empowering people to be a part of the solution just helps buy in with everybody. And now they know what the problem is. They know why we're going forward in a certain direction. And when they get to be a part of that solution, it's just going to be that much better of a fix at the end.
So 50 years, it's a huge milestone. Travis, you've said it 2 or 3 times today. The story of our people as our greatest assets, it's just, you can just feel the pride, right? I mean, we both have pride for that. And as a tribute to our founding fathers, we're going to continue to honor them and carry forward their values as we move into the next 50. And we're all getting together to strengthen our brand and create awareness for our communities so they understand we don't just do civil engineering. Did you know? We do planning, we do GIS. Hey, we've got this pretty cool landscape architecture team. And did you know we have a funding group too to help you out? And the list goes on. And so this awareness for our communities can really enrich them. And they're earning their trust and being good partners to help communities thrive. That's our purpose.
That is our purpose. And I think even back 50 years ago, that was the original drive, right? They even knew that employees were our greatest asset, but we had to have those employees and actually work on that client focused. And even though we've evolved in the services that are there and what we offer, those are all the great evolution to get us to where we are, because we still have our employees as our greatest asset, and our employees realize that we are a client-focused firm, and we need to be able to maintain those clients for us to be able to do what we can do. So I think from the very early beginnings to where we are now, the core basic principle hasn't changed. It's just how we're actually delivering that today. For us, I think everybody on the executive team, but I think even beyond that, every employee can really look back and appreciate what 50 years has been. And I really look back at those original 5 founding fathers that I was lucky enough to meet, all of them, of which one is still with us today. The other 4, unfortunately, have passed on. But I know looking back and see where they even believe where we are today, it warms your heart to realize that I know they're going to feel we're in a good place and we're setting this up for success in the future.
You bet. Well, thanks for taking the time. This was fun today to reflect back. 50 years. It's more than a milestone. It's a story of people, perseverance, and progress. And what stands out most isn't just where interstate engineering has been, but where it's going. Travis, thanks for taking the time to reflect and share these insights today.
Thank you. I really enjoyed being here, and I'm just really excited for where we are going.
And to everyone listening, thanks for being part of the journey. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a colleague or someone passionate about building stronger communities. And stay tuned for more conversations on Interstate and Main Street.